Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're doing something a little different.
Oh,
Yeah. We're going deep on the Marine Corps Doctrinal Publication 10,
okay.
MCDP 10 for short.
Yeah.
This document, basically the Marine Corps playbook for everything they do.
Oh, wow.
So we got a whole stack of source material here, and our mission for this deep dive is to break down the key takeaways from Chapter 11,
Okay.
all about reconnaissance and security operations.
And these concepts are absolutely critical on the battlefield.
Oh, yeah.
Think of it this way. You wouldn't walk into a dark room without turning on the light, right?
Right.
Reconnaissance is all about flipping that switch, illuminating the battlefield so Marines can operate effectively and safely.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
And I see right off the bat, Chapter 11 starts with a quote from the Small Wars Manual that really drives this point home.
Oh, yeah.
Send out scouts to discover the enemy. This is the most important duty.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, Frederick the Great himself
Hmm?
chimes in with, a cautious leader is a wise leader.
Those quotes are spot on.
Yeah.
Even with all the technology we have today, battles are still chaotic and unpredictable.
Yeah.
Good intel gathered through reconnaissance can help Marines avoid nasty surprises and seize opportunities that would otherwise be missed.
Okay, so knowing what the enemy is up to is crucial.
Right.
But what about security operations? How do those fit into the picture?
Security operations go hand in hand with reconnaissance.
Right.
They're all about protecting the force, whether it's from direct attacks or more subtle threats like enemy surveillance.
Uh-huh.
Imagine it like this. Reconnaissance is about knowing where the enemy is and what they're doing,
Okay.
while security operations are about preventing them from doing the same to you.
Got it.
Yeah.
So it's a two-pronged approach.
Right.
Gather information to stay ahead of the enemy while simultaneously taking steps to prevent them from doing the same to you.
Exactly. And MCDP 10 emphasizes that every Marine, regardless of their military occupational specialty,
Okay.
has a role to play in both reconnaissance and security.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's not just specialized units like Force Recon who are responsible for gathering intel.
Not at all.
Ew.
Every Marine is a sensor,
Ah.
a potential source of information.
Oh, wow.
Of course, specialized units have unique capabilities.
Right.
Force Recon, for example, is trained for deep reconnaissance missions behind enemy lines, often operating in small, highly skilled teams.
It sounds like something straight out of a movie. What about other units?
Well, you've got the radio battalion, who are experts in electronic warfare.
Okay.
They can intercept enemy communications, jam their signals, and basically disrupt their ability to coordinate.
Wow.
Then there's the intelligence battalion, analyzing satellite imagery,
Yeah.
processing reports from human sources,
Uh-huh.
and piecing together the puzzle of the enemy's intentions.
So it's a multi-layered approach with different units contributing their specific expertise to build a complete picture of the battlefield.
Precisely.
Wow.
And even units that aren't primarily focused on reconnaissance still play a vital role. Think about combat engineers. Their main job is building and breaching obstacles,
Uh-huh.
but they also conduct route reconnaissance, checking roads and bridges for potential hazards or enemy activity.
It's really amazing how every piece fits together.
It is.
Now, MCDP 10 also talks about different types of reconnaissance, right?
Yes, it breaks reconnaissance down into 4 main types: route, area, zone, and force-oriented reconnaissance.
Okay.
Each type has its own specific purpose and methods.
All right, let's break those down.
Okay.
Route reconnaissance seems pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah,
Is it all about checking roads for safe passage?
that's a big part of it.
Okay.
Imagine a Marine convoy needing to move through potentially hostile territory.
Mm-hmm.
A route reconnaissance team would go ahead,
Yeah.
carefully checking the road for IEDs,
Okay.
potential ambush points, and any other threats.
Okay.
They'd be looking for anything that could disrupt the convoy's movement.
It sounds meticulous, almost like detective work.
It is. Attention to detail is crucial in reconnaissance. Now, area reconnaissance is about focusing on a specific location,
Right.
like a village, a key terrain feature, or a suspected enemy position.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to gather detailed information about that specific area.
So it's more about in-depth analysis of a particular spot.
Exactly.
Okay.
Zone reconnaissance, on the other hand, is broader in scope.
Okay.
It involves systematically covering a larger area,
Mm-hmm.
often using aerial assets like drones or manned aircraft.
Right.
Think of it like mapping out the entire battlefield,
Okay.
identifying enemy positions, obstacles, and avenues of approach.
It's like creating a giant real-time map of the battlefield.
Exactly.
And what about force-oriented reconnaissance?
Yeah.
What makes that different?
Force-oriented reconnaissance is all about targeting a specific enemy unit.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on a geographical area,
Yeah.
you're focused on the enemy themselves.
Okay.
The goal is to track their movements,
Mm-hmm.
determine their strength and composition,
Okay.
and anticipate their next move.
So it's less about terrain and more about understanding the enemy's behavior and intentions.
Precisely.
Wow.
It's almost like shadowing them, trying to get inside their heads and predict their actions.
That's fascinating. So
Yeah.
by understanding these 4 types of reconnaissance,
Right.
Marines can choose the right approach for the mission at hand.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's about having the right tools for the job
Right.
and knowing when to use each one.
Now, MCDP 10 also mentions something called reconnaissance pull and reconnaissance push.
Right.
What's the difference between those two?
This is where the strategic thinking comes into play.
Okay.
Reconnaissance pull is all about identifying enemy weaknesses
Mhm.
and then exploiting them.
Oh,
It's like finding a chink in the enemy's armor and then striking at that point.
so it's about being proactive,
Right.
using reconnaissance to find an advantage, and then capitalizing on it.
Exactly. A classic example of reconnaissance pull would be the landing at Tinian during World War II.
Oh, okay.
Marines conducted extensive reconnaissance of the island.
And discovered that the northern beaches were lightly defended.
Wow.
This allowed them to launch a surprise attack,
Mhm.
overwhelming the Japanese forces and securing a crucial victory.
It's amazing how crucial that intel was to the success of the operation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now contrast that with reconnaissance push,
Okay.
which is more about systematically clearing the enemy as you advance.
Okay.
It's a deliberate approach,
Mm-hmm.
often used when you're operating in enemy territory,
Right.
and need to secure your flanks and lines of communication.
So it's less about finding a specific weakness and more about methodically neutralizing the enemy as you move forward.
Exactly.
Okay.
A good example of reconnaissance push would be operations during the Gulf War,
Okay.
where Marine units used reconnaissance to locate and neutralize Iraqi forces as they advanced through Kuwait.
It's like clearing the path as you go, making sure there are no surprises waiting around the corner.
Exactly. And the choice between pull and push depends entirely on the situation, the mission objectives.
And the enemy you're facing.
Okay, so we've got different types of reconnaissance,
Right.
and then we have these different strategic approaches to using that intel.
Yeah.
It's starting to make a lot of sense.
See it.
But it's not just about gathering intel on the enemy, right?
All right.
We also need to make sure they don't get their hands on our information.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that's where counter-reconnaissance comes in.
Okay.
It's the art of preventing the enemy from spying on you.
So it's like turning the tables,
Mm-hmm.
using the same principles of reconnaissance to protect our own forces and operations.
Exactly. It's about being aware of the enemy's reconnaissance capabilities and taking steps to counter them.
Yeah.
This could involve actively hunting down enemy reconnaissance teams, using camouflage and deception to mask our movements,
Right.
or implementing strict operational security measures to prevent leaks of sensitive information.
It sounds like a constant game of cat and mouse trying to outsmart the enemy and protect our own secrets.
It is, and the stakes are high.
Yeah.
Because if the enemy gains access to our plans or intentions, it could jeopardize the entire mission.
Okay, so we've got reconnaissance,
Right?
security operations,
Yeah.
and counter-reconnaissance.
Yes.
It's a lot to take in,
It is.
but it's fascinating to see how it all fits together.
It is really,
Yeah.
and we've only just scratched the surface.
Oh, wow.
There's so much more to explore in MCDP 10, Chapter 11.
Okay.
But hopefully this gives you a good foundation for understanding the basic principles of reconnaissance and security operations.
It definitely does.
Right.
And it's clear that these concepts are absolutely crucial for mission success in the Marine Corps.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
They're the bedrock of effective operations,
Mhm.
ensuring that Marines can operate safely, decisively, and ultimately achieve their objectives on the battlefield.
Now, I understand that MCDP 10 goes into a lot of detail about the specific units and assets involved in reconnaissance and security operations.
It does.
I'm curious to hear more about that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's a great place to dive in next.
Okay.
MCDP 10 breaks down the reconnaissance and security capabilities of each element of the Marine Air Ground Task Force, or MAGTF.
Okay.
We can explore how these different elements, the command element,
Right.
the ground combat element,
Yeah.
the aviation combat element,
Huh.
and the logistics combat element all contribute to the overall effort.
That sounds like a great place to pick up in part 2. We'll be back after a short break to dive deeper into the specific roles and responsibilities of each MGTF element in reconnaissance and security operations. All right, so before the break, we were talking about how Every Marine has a role to play in reconnaissance and security.
Right.
Now I'm ready to dive into how the different elements of the Marine Air Ground Task Force, or MEGTF, contribute their unique capabilities to the overall effort.
It's like an orchestra with each section playing its part to create a harmonious whole.
Okay.
MCDP 10 breaks it down beautifully, starting with the command element, or CE.
Okay.
They're the conductors orchestrating the entire reconnaissance and security symphony.
So they're calling the shots, deciding what intel needs to be gathered, and tasking the different units to get it done.
Exactly. They have direct control over some key players, like Force Recon,
Okay.
the Radio Battalion, and the Intelligence Battalion,
Right.
assigning them specific missions based on the commander's intent.
I remember you mentioned the radio battalion earlier.
Mhm.
They're the ones who can intercept enemy communications and jam their signals right.
That's right. They're like the silent disruptors messing with the enemy's ability to coordinate and communicate effectively.
Right.
It's a critical aspect of both reconnaissance and counter-reconnaissance.
It's amazing how technology has changed the game in that regard.
Yeah, it is.
Now, what about the ground combat element, or GCE? Those are the boots on the ground.
Right.
The Marines who are directly engaging the enemy.
Yeah.
They must be a primary source of intel.
Absolutely. Every Marine in the GCE, from the infantryman on patrol to the artillery observer calling in fire support, is a potential source of valuable information.
Oh, wow.
They're seeing the enemy firsthand, observing their movements, and reporting back on their activities.
It's like having thousands of eyes and ears spread across the battlefield.
Exactly. And within the GCE, you have specialized units like the Division Reconnaissance Battalion.
Right.
These Marines are highly trained in both amphibious and ground reconnaissance, often operating deep behind enemy lines to gather critical intel.
That must take incredible skill and courage.
It does. And then you have light armored reconnaissance units,
Yeah.
equipped with fast mobile vehicles that allow them to quickly cover large areas and scout out enemy positions.
Oh, they're providing that rapid mobility and flexibility on the battlefield.
Exactly. And don't forget about the combat engineers we talked about earlier.
Right.
They're out there scouting roads, bridges, and other infrastructure,
Yeah.
not just building and breaching obstacles.
Okay.
They're providing crucial information about the terrain and potential hazards.
It's amazing how many different roles contribute to the reconnaissance effort.
It is.
And we can't forget about the scout snipers.
Oh, right.
They're masters of stealth and observation.
Yeah.
Often operating in small teams far behind enemy lines.
Right.
They can provide long-range reconnaissance, target acquisition,
Yeah.
and even precision fire support if needed.
That's right.
It sounds like they're the ultimate force multipliers, able to influence the battles from a distance.
They are.
Now, what about the aviation combat element, or ACE?
Okay.
They must have a unique perspective on the battlefield.
They certainly do. Think of them as the eyes in the sky providing that big picture view of the battle space.
Okay.
MCDP 10 highlights their ability to observe enemy movements,
Right.
assess terrain, and provide real-time updates to commanders on the ground.
I can imagine that kind of intel being incredibly valuable, especially in a fast-moving situation.
Absolutely. And with advancements in technology, the ACE's reconnaissance capabilities have become even more formidable.
In a way.
Drones or unmanned aircraft systems are a game changer.
Oh, yeah.
They can provide persistent surveillance, day or night,
Uh-huh.
beaming back high-definition imagery and video directly to commanders.
It's like having a constant feed of what's happening on the battlefield.
Exactly. And it's not just drones.
Right.
Manned aircraft like FA-18 fighter jets
Yeah.
can be equipped with sophisticated sensor systems that allow them to gather detailed imagery and intelligence.
Oh, wow.
They can even jam enemy radars and disrupt their communications.
So they're not just observing, they're actively interfering with the enemy's ability to operate.
Precisely. They're a crucial component of both reconnaissance and counter-reconnaissance efforts.
Now, we talked about the command element,
Right.
the ground combat element,
Yeah.
and the aviation combat element.
Mm-hmm.
What about the logistics combat element, or LCE?
Okay.
I wouldn't immediately think of them as being heavily involved in reconnaissance.
You're right. They might not have dedicated reconnaissance units like the other elements.
Right.
But MCDP 10 makes it clear that the LCE still plays a vital role. Their engineer units can conduct route reconnaissance, assessing the condition of roads, bridges, and other infrastructure to ensure the safe and efficient movement of supplies.
So they're ensuring that the logistical lifelines of the MGTF are secure and operational.
Exactly. And convoys and military police patrols, both part of the LCE,
Right.
can also provide valuable information about the security of supply routes and rear areas.
Okay.
They're constantly moving through the battle space, observing and reporting on anything that might pose a threat.
It's remarkable how every element, even those primarily focused on support functions, contributes to the overall reconnaissance and security effort.
It's a testament to the Marine Corps philosophy of every Marine being a rifleman, regardless of their MOS.
Right.
Everyone is trained to be aware of their surroundings,
Yeah.
report information, and take steps to protect themselves and their fellow Marines.
It's that culture of vigilance and awareness that sets the Marine Corps apart.
It really is.
But it's not just about the individual Marines, right?
Right.
MCDP 1.0 also emphasizes the importance of coordination and collaboration between the different elements of the AGTF.
Absolutely. It's not enough for each element to be doing their own thing in isolation.
Yeah.
The real power comes from integrating their efforts, sharing information, and working together seamlessly.
So it's about creating a synergy where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. The MAGTF is designed to be a highly adaptable and integrated force,
Right.
capable of responding to a wide range of threats and challenges, and effective reconnaissance and security are absolutely essential to that adaptability.
Now, MCDP 1.0 also acknowledges that the Marine Corps doesn't operate in a vacuum, right?
Right.
They often work alongside other branches of the military, as well as with allies and partners.
Yeah.
How does that factor into reconnaissance and security operations?
That's a great point.
Yep.
MCDP 1.0 stresses the importance of leveraging those external assets.
Yeah.
The MAGTF can request reconnaissance support from a variety of sources,
Like what?
including national and theater assets like the Joint Surveillance Target Attack Radar System, or JSTARS,
Okay.
which can track ground movements from high altitude, or Army Signals Intelligence aircraft, which can intercept enemy communications.
So it's about tapping into a wider network of resources to gain an even more comprehensive understanding of the battle space.
Precisely. And
Wow.
just as importantly, it's about seamlessly integrating those external assets into the MAGTF's own reconnaissance and security plans.
It sounds like a complex coordination challenge.
It can be, but the payoff is enormous.
Yeah.
By working together effectively, the Marine Corps and its partners can create a truly formidable intelligence network, capable of outmaneuvering and outsmarting even the most sophisticated adversaries.
Okay, we've talked about the who, the what, and the how of reconnaissance and security operations.
Right.
But I think it's important to circle back to the why.
Okay.
Why are these concepts so vital to the Marine Corps mission success?
That's the heart of it, isn't it? MCDP 1.0 lays out a clear and compelling case for the importance of reconnaissance and security.
Okay.
First and foremost,
Yeah.
they reduce uncertainty.
Okay.
As we've discussed, the fog of war is a constant challenge on the battlefield.
Right.
Without accurate and timely information, commanders are operating in the dark, vulnerable to surprise attacks and missed opportunities.
It's like trying to navigate a maze blindfolded.
Right.
You might eventually stumble upon the exit,
Yeah.
but it's going to be a lot more dangerous and painful than if you had a map.
That's a great analogy. Reconnaissance provides that map illuminating the battlefield and allowing commanders to make informed decisions,
Right.
anticipate enemy actions, and plan their operations with greater confidence.
So it's not just about reacting to what the enemy is doing.
Right.
It's about anticipating their moves and being proactive.
Exactly. And good reconnaissance can also help identify enemy weaknesses,
Okay.
allowing the MAGTF to exploit those vulnerabilities and achieve decisive results. We saw that in the example of the Tinian land-in,
Right.
where careful reconnaissance revealed a gap in the Japanese defenses,
Yeah.
leading to a successful surprise attack.
It's amazing how crucial that intel was to the success of the operation.
Absolutely.
And on the flip side, effective reconnaissance can help prevent friendly forces from walking into ambushes or heavily defended positions.
That's right.
It's all about minimizing risk and maximizing the chances of mission success.
It is.
So reconnaissance and security are not just about gathering information.
Right.
They're about using that information to shape the battlefield, gain a tactical advantage, and ultimately protect Marines' lives.
Precisely. And that's a message that resonates throughout MCDP 1.0.
Yeah.
It's a call to action for every Marine,
Okay.
regardless of their role, to embrace the importance of reconnaissance and security
Okay.
and contribute to the core ability to win in any environment.
Now, I understand that MCDP 1 goes into quite a bit of detail about the planning process for reconnaissance and security operations.
It does.
Can you give us a taste of what that entails?
Absolutely. That's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak.
Okay.
MCDP 1.0 dedicates a significant portion to reconnaissance planning.
Right.
And for good reason.
Right.
It's not just about sending Marines out to gather intel.
Right.
It's about a deliberate and systematic approach
Yeah.
that ensures the right information is collected at the right time and used effectively to support the commander's decision-making.
So walk us through it.
Okay.
What are the key elements of effective reconnaissance planning according to MCDP 10?
Well, it all starts with the commander's intent.
Right.
What are the critical information requirements? What does the commander need to know in order to make informed decisions about the mission?
Right. It's about identifying those key gaps in knowledge that need to be filled.
Exactly. And ideally, reconnaissance assets are employed early in the planning cycle so the information they gather can help shape the overall course of action.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You don't want to be scrambling for intel after the mission has already begun.
Right.
Early engagement allows for better coordination,
Okay.
more focused tasking,
Mm-hmm.
and a smoother flow of information.
Now, MCDP 10 also emphasizes the importance of flexibility in reconnaissance planning, right?
Absolutely.
Well-
The battle space is a dynamic environment, and things can change rapidly.
Right.
A good reconnaissance plan anticipates these changes and allows for adjustments on the fly.
It's about being able to adapt to unexpected situations,
Uh-huh.
shift priorities as needed,
Yeah.
and ensure that reconnaissance efforts are always aligned with the evolving needs of the mission.
MCDP 10 highlights the crucial role of the MAD-GTF commander and their staff in determining the best use of reconnaissance assets.
Okay.
They need to consider a range of factors,
Like what?
including the type of reconnaissance required, the available assets,
Right.
the time constraints,
Yeah.
and the potential risks involved.
That sounds like a complex balancing act.
It can be. But when done effectively, reconnaissance planning can make all the difference in the success of a mission. Right.
It can provide the critical edge that allows the MAD-GTF to outmaneuver the enemy, exploit vulnerabilities, and achieve its objectives.
So it can provide the critical edge that allows the AGTF to outmaneuver the enemy, exploit vulnerabilities, and achieve its objectives.
Exactly. And MCDP 10 really stresses the need for a tailored approach.
Okay.
One that takes into account the specific mission,
Right.
the enemy, the terrain, and the available resources.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal.
Not at all. Every situation is unique.
Yeah.
And the reconnaissance plan needs to be flexible enough to adapt to changing circumstances.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You wouldn't use the same playbook for a jungle operation as you would for an urban environment.
That's exactly. MCDP 10 provides a framework for thinking through those variables.
Yep.
And developing a plan that maximizes the effectiveness of reconnaissance and security efforts.
I'm curious to hear more about those specific considerations.
Okay.
What are some of the key factors that
Uh.
go into developing a solid reconnaissance plan?
Well, first and foremost, the plan needs to be driven by the commander's intent.
What?
What are the critical information requirements? What does the commander need to know in order to make informed decisions about the mission?
Right. It's about identifying those key gaps in knowledge that need to be filled.
Precisely. And then it's about determining the best mix of reconnaissance assets to employ.
Boy,
Do you need boots on the ground, eyes in the sky, or a combination of both?
it's like choosing the right tools for the job.
Exactly. And then you have to consider the timing.
Right.
When do you need the information?
Yeah.
How long will it take to gather it?
Hmm.
Can you afford to wait, or do you need real-time updates?
These are all crucial considerations.
Yeah, you are.
It's starting to sound like reconnaissance planning is almost as complex as the operations themselves.
It can be, but that's why it's so important to have a clear and well-defined process.
Right.
MCDP 10 provides that roadmap, helping Marines think through the complexities and develop plans that are both comprehensive and adaptable.
Okay, so we've covered the planning aspect.
Right.
Now let's shift gears and talk about the execution of reconnaissance and security operations.
Okay.
What are some of the key challenges that Marines might face in the field, and how does MCDP 10 help them overcome those challenges?
That's a great question. One of the biggest challenges in reconnaissance is dealing with the fog of war.
Yeah.
That inherent uncertainty that exists on the battlefield. Things are constantly changing. Information can be incomplete or unreliable, and the enemy is always trying to deceive you.
It sounds incredibly stressful.
It is.
How do Marines maintain situational awareness and make good decisions in that kind of environment?
Well, MCDT 10 emphasizes the importance of developing a keen sense of observation and critical thinking.
Okay.
It encourages Marines to constantly assess their surroundings,
Yeah.
question assumptions, and look for inconsistencies.
So it's not just about blindly following orders.
Right.
It's about thinking for yourself and using your judgment.
Exactly. And it's about effective communication. Marines need to be able to clearly and concisely report their observations,
Yeah.
share information with their unit,
Uh-huh.
and escalate concerns up the chain of command.
That's like a network with everyone contributing to the overall flow of information.
Precisely. And MCDP 10 provides guidelines for effective reporting,
Right.
ensuring that information is transmitted quickly and accurately.
Now, another challenge I can imagine is dealing with the physical and mental demands of reconnaissance and security operations.
Right.
These missions can be incredibly grueling, requiring long hours, limited sleep, and constant vigilance.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And MCDP 10 acknowledges those demands.
Okay.
It stresses the importance of physical fitness,
Right.
mental toughness, and resilience. Marines need to be able to push themselves beyond their limits
Yeah.
and maintain their focus even when they're exhausted and under pressure.
It sounds like it takes a special breed to excel in these roles.
It does. But the Marine Corps has a long and proud tradition of producing Marines who are up to the challenge. They understand the importance of their mission,
Righty.
and they're willing to make the sacrifices necessary to ensure its success.
It's inspiring to hear that level of dedication.
It truly is.
Yeah.
And it's something that MCDP 10 seeks to foster by providing the knowledge, skills, and mindset that Marines need to thrive in the demanding world of reconnaissance and security operations.
Well, I think we've covered an incredible amount of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
We've explored the principles of reconnaissance and security operations,
Mm.
the different types of missions, the specific assets involved, the plan and process, and the challenges that Marines face in the field.
It's a lot.
It is.
And through it all, we've seen how MCDP 10 serves as a guide,
Right?
a roadmap for Marines to navigate the complexities of the modern battlefield and achieve mission success.
It's clear that this document is an essential resource for any Marine who wants to master the art of reconnaissance and security.
It is.
And to our listeners out there, we hope this deep dive has been informative and engaging. We encourage you to continue your study of MCDP 10, to apply these principles in your training and operations, and to share your knowledge with your fellow Marines.
Remember, the battle space is constantly evolving and the enemy is always adapting.
Right.
But by mastering the principles of reconnaissance and security, you're giving yourself and your unit a decisive advantage.
Yes.
You're ensuring that the Marine Corps remains the world's most formidable fighting force, ready to face any challenge anywhere, anytime.
Keep your eyes open, your mind sharp, and your rifles ready. Until next time, Semper Fi.